Hey everyone, welcome back to New Slang. I'm music journalist Thomas Mooney, and this is episode 184, where I'm joined by the great Lubbock singer-songwriter Butch Hancock. This is part 3 of a 3-part series where I'm joined by the Flatlanders. The previous episodes were, of course, with Jimmie Dale Gilmore and Joe Ely. I would highly encourage y'all to take the 3 episodes in that order of release. I feel like they'll be slightly more enjoyable that way. But at any rate, they are all enjoyable and stand on their own, which I feel like I keep on coming back to time and again with these introductions. How the Flatlanders' career, the catalog, and the impact is massive because all of those individual careers are impressive and trend-setting. I think it was Jimmie who had mentioned how that creative space, that time and space, is perhaps what made the Flatlanders possible. They never got to the point where they were tired of each other. They never were too reliant on the Flatlanders. They all felt that those solo careers were just as important, and again, they were necessary. These conversations with Jimmie, Joe, and Butch, they've all been so incredible, and I feel fortunate enough to maybe at least have that Lubbock angle. Not that any of these other interviews that I've done this year aren't incredible and great and enjoyable, but I feel like I'm still tied to these 3 right here as just being slightly more fun because they've been on that bucket list for so long. Some interviews you really don't have to do the homework on. You've kind of just been doing that your entire life. And I feel very much that way when it comes to these 3 interviews with the Flatlanders. For me, I felt like I was more just getting all my ducks in a row and making sure I didn't forget things that I wanted to ask. But of course, as you would imagine, there are things that have popped up that I just thought, man, I should have asked Joe or Jimmie or Butch this. I should have brought up this. I say that because hopefully we'll be able to do this again in the near future. It's one of those things where I'll probably never run out of questions to ask guys like Joe, Jimmie, and Butch. Again, Treasure of Love, the newest album by the Flatlanders, is officially out today. Go buy it, go listen to it, go check out the other episodes with Jimmie and Joe if you haven't. Today's presenting partner is our pals over at Desert Door Texas Sulto. If you've been listening to New Slang for really any amount of time, you'll know that Desert Door is one of my all-time favorite premium, high-quality spirits. If you haven't or aren't sure what exactly a Sulto is, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that's going to up the game on your liquor cabinet. For starters, the best reference point that I can point you to is to think about a tequila or a mezcal. Do you feel that Western desert, that Texas ruggedness? Okay. Sulto is like that, but a little bit more refined, smooth, and fragrant. It intrigues the palate and offers these hints of vanilla and citrus. There's an earthiness that often sends me right back to my Trans-Pecos and far west Texas roots. There's plenty to love about Desert Door. For me, it all starts right there. A close second is just how versatile Desert Door really is. You can go full highbrow and experiment with concocting a variety of cocktails that call for muddling fresh fruit, sprigs of thyme, sticks of cinnamon. It's perfect for that world. If you're a little bit more down home, if you've just rolled up the sleeves of your denim Wrangler button-up, it's perfect for that as well. If you're just desiring something that's short and sweet, it hits the mark every time. Desert Door is genuine and authentically West Texan. It's inherently West Texan. They harvest Sulto plants out in the wild and are knowledgeable conservationists at heart. That's obviously something incredibly important to me. They shine a light on what makes West Texas special and unique and worth preserving and keeping it safe from exploitation. Right now, you can find Desert Door all over Texas, Colorado, Tennessee, and there's budding numbers in places like New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Georgia. Best thing you can do is to check out desertdoor.com to find where Desert Door is locally. Again, that's desertdoor.com. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, definitely would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go and leave one of those 5-star reviews. Go give New Slang a like on Facebook and a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the merch store, which is at newslangpodcast.bigcartel.com. All the links that I just mentioned, they will be in the show notes. All right, let's get on into it. Here is Butch Hancock. Well, I guess where I want to start off with is in a similar spot that I've started with Jimmy and Joe, and obviously you guys have this new record, Treasure of Love, coming out next week, and as I've kind of, I guess, maybe framed it a little bit to them as well as has been that I feel like this record is really informed by the radio in the sense of that, like maybe a lot of the songs that you guys were listening to on the radio whenever AM radio was big, and that, you know, you could pick up stations from Chicago or you could pick up Wolfman Jack. And to me, at least, all these years later, and not really having those experiences, but hearing that generation, y'all's generation, talk about how important radio was and all of that kind of stuff, it feels like this record, since a lot of these songs are traditionals or covers, that it feels very informed by that kind of feeling and that maybe a little bit of those themes. What's your take on that?
Well, that's real interesting, and there's a true element and another true element to that. One is that it's true that all of those songs are, you know, certainly influenced by what we heard on the radio all through the years, especially on the border radio, but also a lot of the great country music station and KLLL in Lubbock, you know, which I remember as I was growing up, I would drive a tractor for my dad, who was in the earth moving business around Lubbock, and so I wasn't stuck on the same farm every day, but I was stuck on a tractor just about every day. It was like one day I'd be riding a bulldozer, another day a maintainer, and another day earth moving. And I always look forward to lunch, not just because I knew I'd be hungry, but because it'd be a chance to listen to a little bit of radio. And after we got done with with Paul Harvey, I'd find something, some music I could listen to. And I remember hearing Marty Robbins and Johnny Cash and all the guys, all the old country folks, and listening to it out in the middle of a cotton field that was being reworked so that it would hold water instead of let the water erode part of the country. It was an amazing experience. It was very had a different kind of a personal effect on me than listening to the radio running around in an automobile. Now that was another personal experience. It was a different kind of thing. So there's different layers of how radio affects you. And but I was looking at the titles, to all these songs and how I remember them first. And most of them I remembered first by hearing them on a record, on a LP record. Long time gone, Everly Brothers things, I probably heard that on the radio first. But Snowing on Raton, even, which came much later, it was I either heard Town singing it first, or I heard it on one of his first albums.
Right.
The Leon Russell thing. Now, I might have heard that on the radio first, but I'm pretty sure Jimmy showed it to me on a LP. And Love, Please Come Home, all the Carolina boys, both of theirs, I definitely heard that first on an LP. And Give My Love to Rose, probably heard that on the radio first. But it's so there's this funny combination coming at you from not exactly two different directions, but actually two different directions. It's and the way it's not two directions is that it came from, it's the same recording. And the other direction is it came from a radio. There's one place you hear it just in your home near a radio, near a phonograph player, right? Mm-hmm. And the other way is out in the world doing things. So there are these different kinds of effects that you're adding to it, because you're in a different place each time you hear it on the radio, maybe. And in your home, you're kind of got your familiarity in the little world you've created in your room around you. So there's, it's a strange thing. I don't know if I've ever even thought of this before, but like this. But your question made me come up with this. Mobile Blues. I heard that on a record first, and Sitting on Top of the World. I might have heard that performed publicly sometime back around Lubbock with some of the old bands that would show up at rodeos and square dancing. My folks used to. They didn't dance so much, but they took me to hear some and watch some square dancing around Lubbock. And so there's things like that it's kind of like the cosmos is active on you, from whether it's the night sky or it's the sun and the moon in the sky in the daytime, and as well as just all of life on the planet, and that mysterious part of uh, especially for young kids that had never experienced it before. To hearing things coming in on a radio, on a box in your house, and then, on a little device in an automobile, that was just pretty weird, to hear great music being played. So, yeah, man, I was lucky to grow up in Lubbock for many reasons, but, that strange combination of isolation and also just, in your face, whether the in your face was literally in your face or whether it was, miles over there on the horizon. uh, and maybe it's all those electric thunderstorms and lightning that kind of always interfered with the radio. You'd hear it, you'd see some lightning flash, and at the same time you'd hear static on the radio. So what was with that? What's going on? and, uh, it made my primal instincts maybe wonder, hey, wait a minute, maybe this music is coming from the lightning. It's electrical stuff, clouds, something's alive up there that's interfering with this sound down here that humans are messing with. so so I don't know, maybe that's just the way you think driving a tractor out there on those flatlands. I know I I daydreamed about physics and music, and I think about that times when I started writing a song. I started figuring out, hey, wait a minute, I could get in on this songwriting business. That's fun, because I've been doing a little bit of poetry, a little just kind of goofy poetry
Mm-hmm.
over the years. Starting probably in high school somewhere, some English class or something, and. I was always fascinated that things could rhyme and at the same time make sense. that, that just blew my mind. Wait a minute, those things are not required of each other, and yet they can happen.
Yeah.
So language became as interesting as the stars, and as the wind. In spite of Lubbock having so much wind, it's like every day the wind was seemed like the same in some ways, but there was a little bit of difference in it every time you experience it. So, and that's maybe the same difference that as listening to a radio play different songs. I don't know. Seemed
Yeah.
like it. At least that's the way I feel today, 50 years later.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you're saying there about, I guess, and this is something maybe I didn't necessarily put it this way when talking with Jimmy or Joe, but you really do come from that generation where there is that break in the radio, where the radio was like the hearth of the home, right? It may as well be the campfire, the fireplace, where it's
Yeah.
kind of a, something that you can't really, you go to that room to hear, and within, you know your childhood, all of a sudden what becomes the radio is able to be movable, right? And it's a open highway and fast cars, and that whole thing, as far as the expansion of where maybe for generations, there's people who have been living in a rural kind of way, not really moving away from home, and then all of a sudden those doors are open where you have like the ability to really get out and get away from wherever that place was, wherever your version of home was. And it's interesting that you bring that up in a lot of ways, as far as those two, I guess, not necessarily competing ideas of radio, but how radio transitioned in that way. And
well, yeah, you're mentioning the road with that is really, yeah, that's an amazing time in America where traveling, we went from traveling by buggies and horses and mules to traveling in vehicles that were self-motivated. I mean, or self-powered, and then roads became roads took another leap in the metaphor for life. Here's yeah, you're walking a rough and rocky road there, boy. Well, yeah, you're walking oh man, now you're really in trouble. You're on a very smooth superhighway. Don't you have time to, why don't you slow down and see things, There's so suddenly, yeah, we were cast during that time of the, I guess all of the 20th century, and great part of I guess near the end of the 1900s, I mean the 1800s, the vehicles started to show up, steam trains and steam cars and strange vehicles motivating around, and then airplanes. But the road has always been this very mystical place to me. It's always fascinating because you go from home or somewhere to the next place, go out, sometimes drive all day, and sometimes you're just driving down to the downtown Lubbock. Good Lord. Then you got to go back home, get out of downtown Lubbock. And, there's so many dreams have been engendered and broken and lived out, and successful or failure, or all these things around it's not around necessarily around the roads, but the roads enable a lot of our dreaming and not just as individuals, but as a collective, and the world caught on to that, and with the industrial revolution and corporate automobile companies and oil companies, man, you look out, roads are going to be everywhere. And that may be one reason I'm out here in Terlingua is, first of all, there was a road. It was a dirt road when I first came out here, but it's been made now. It's been made, what do they call it? RV friendly. So
yeah,
I hated that term, but it's true. And so there's roads lead you through civilizations. I'm sure Rome, the coming of the roads in Italy and throughout parts of the earth, they were such an anomaly, because formerly things were only, cow paths and footpaths around. And then next thing you know, there were these places worn in the ground by more than one person doing it. It's maybe armies kind of invented roads first. I don't know. But at any rate, these things were all parts of, history and future and present, all being experienced as the simultaneous growth of civilizations and decay of civilizations. And the wars, it's like the ocean. When it's disturbed, it makes waves in all kinds of directions. And the same thing's true of the planet, I think, and of human communities and human collective. If there's collective conscious, I don't know. I hadn't seen much um, favorable results out of that. But individuals seem to come up with some good ideas, and then they get dispersed and traded, even on the stock market. So things things happen to every new plant that comes up out of the ground. It's facing a whole world of wind and weather, and the same is true of every human being born. We get, we're facing the cold north wind of of uh, of public education, and or the hot summer winds of having to walk until we get a bicycle, and then having to have a bicycle till we get a motorcycle or a car. So it's weather comes in many forms besides the weather. It's as does all kinds of obstructions and enablements. Uh, I hope I hope I'm not getting too far out here, but it
No,
seems like
no.
it are always in our face anyway. The most far out things are right in our face.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Um you mentioned a minute ago about, when you first started writing. I know that first record the first solo record you did, the West Texas Waltzes and Dust Blown Tractor Tunes. You mentioned how, when you're working for your dad and out there on those tractors and moving earth, and um I guess like having maybe a little bit of space while you're working to be thinking about songs and be thinking about, you know um, these stories that are kind of happening around you, even, through that window of a tractor or a truck or anything like that. Um, I think that like what's fascinating is how, we're talking about a lot of the industrial stuff, and sure, there's plenty of industrial aspects of agriculture, but um, what's fascinating is how a lot of people from around this area, no matter if it was back in the 70s or today, a lot of people still are singing and writing about um, that I guess like the relationship between man and trying to farm, or trying to, put their imprint on the land, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think? What was it, just like, obviously just kind of, since that was such a first person experience for you, that really drew you into to kind of starting from that point, writing about songs that you, or writing about stuff that you kind of just you knew.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know whether it's partly the music that we grew up around as well. And I'm saying we, you know, um, I feel like Bob Dylan sometimes. I am multitudes. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that song that he just had out a few months ago. Uh, it's yeah. Anyway, it's um, the uh, the the relation between uh, tractor driving, or riding the car, and they can't, if you think too much, it kind of destroys what you're trying to listen for, what you're trying to get out of those experiences. And in fact, you can't even, if you try too hard to get something out of an experience, you're going to probably going to miss most of the experience. um, it's a matter of kind of giving up, relinquishing your own um, trying to think it into existence, and just letting the tractor driving tell you what to write, or letting the environment that you're driving the tractor through or the automobile through, let that talk to you, instead of you telling it how it's going to be in a song. You wait. If you'll wait a little while, be a little patient, get the rhythm of the clouds, let the clouds talk to you, let the weather, the rain, I would, particularly the dust and the sand in Lubbock. It
Mm-hmm.
always blows. I realized after a few weeks on the tractor, and I was getting miserable in the dust and dust storms and the wind. I said, man, wait a minute, I'm going to be working here all year, doing this all year. I better learn to love this stuff, because if I don't, I'm going to be miserable for this whole year. And that was like a huge revelation to me, that yeah, this sand. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound too sick, but it's, at some point it really felt good to get sand in the face, sand in the eyes, and in the mouth. It was something about it. Just there's something, when you get out on a cold, windy day, and maybe you got your warm clothes on you, but you're walking into the wind. There's something about it that feels good, even if it's screamingly cold. But then you got to take care of yourself too, and find shelter if need be. But there's something about the raw weather, the raw, hot sunlight, just cooking you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get carried away with it and let it kill you, you can. It really, really talks to you, and it helps your words um, come up in a maybe a little bit gentler kind of way than fighting and struggling against those things. I mean, the fighting and struggling can be there anytime, so you don't have to even look for that. It's you can find that walking down the street or dancing at the prom, or however you want to dance. Uh, there's there's always the oppressive side and the liberating side of things, and it's really, really simple. You've got to do the choosing about that. And if you choose the oppressive side, you might can write a lot more songs, but they're going to sound pretty oppressive.
Right.
And if it helps liberate you, you don't know what's going to be written, and that's a joy. If you can have your chops together enough to write something that makes sense out of all that wonder and amazement and love of life. Uh, there's the old saying that where I don't write any happy songs because I'm all, when I'm sad, that helps me. But when I'm happy, I'm too busy to be to write a song. Well, I figured, man, that's a little bit inside out to me. But there's a place in the middle where it all meets, where they can exchange places sometimes, and uh, up is down and down is up, and truth and fiction kind of marry up, and then you can maybe carry a song off into the across the horizon and bring it back again, and it'll be fiction, but it'll also tell the truth in the process. So I like, yeah, that album that you're referring to it was a lot of just sitting up on the tractor, and just what you see is what you get. Yeah, there's cows in the meadow, and uh, what was somebody in the meadow and the others in the corn. I can't even remember what the song, but an old school bus down a old country road. Just it's real
Mm-hmm.
simple. And and then when I'm started writing more when I was in a city or in a more socially active situation, like college or moving down to Austin, then you get a lot more of a mix, a lot of mental things going on, a lot of social measurement or evaluation of everything from local politics to universal principles, and it all comes to the table when you start to write. And when you're on a tractor out in the middle of West Texas, that's your table right there. But in a city situation and traveling around the country or around the world, you find yourselves writing on the fly, and hoping you'll put something together that kind of brings all of that together, including the traveling. Uh, So yeah, man, it's a endless possibilities. Whether you're stuck in the same routine every day, or a different place every few hours, you've still got more material than you can ever write about.
Mm-hmm.
And but so that's what we do, writers. Anyway, you keep writing anyway, when there's nothing to write about or too much to write about.
This episode of New Slang is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Blue Light has long been the heart and soul of the Lubbock singer-songwriter scene and has been a home away from home for some of Texas, Americana, country, and rock and roll's finest over the years. Talk with 99.9% of the songwriters who have come out of Lubbock and the Panhandle at large over the past 20 years, and they'll point to just how integral and necessary the Blue Light is. With live music and touring slowly but surely coming back, spots like the Blue Light are getting back to their usual ways as well. That means music every night of the week. Do you want to see that schedule? Well, I've got a few options for you. 1, go to their socials and give them a follow. That is at Blue Light Live on Twitter, at The Blue Light Live on Instagram, and of course by just searching The Blue Light Live on Facebook. They're consistently posting that week's lineup of shows, as well as those heavy hitters that ought to be on your calendar that are coming up on the horizon. 2, check out bluelightlubbock.com as well. There they have the full schedule, the cover charges, time, any of those specials that may be happening. While there, go check out their merch page. They have a wide range of hats, koozies, hoodies, sweaters, beanies, jackets, and so much more. You can, of course, get all of your merch needs when you go see your favorite band take the stage at Blue Light. Just ask the bartender and they will get you all set. Speaking of which, that's another great way of seeing who's playing there. Just go to the Blue Light. It's at 1806 Buddy Holly Avenue here in Lubbock, Texas. And of course, again, that is bluelightlubbock.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes too. Maybe I'll see you there. Okay, let's get back to the show. You mentioned you can't fight it. You can't fight if you're feeling oppressed, you're gonna feel like you write a bunch of stuff that's has that tone to it.
Yeah.
Do you think that like those early days of when you're driving around like that, it may be in the same way that when you're typing on a typewriter, you can't go too fast or your keys start jamming up on you.
Yeah.
That maybe being in that tractor, being in those trucks, where that it kind of like, I guess, maybe created a little bit of patience and demanded patience, and then how do you feel like that's maybe like helped you out throughout your career, even when you do move into a city or maybe even like your photography work or your painting? Do you feel like you've been able to take that principle, I guess, and be able to, use it in many facets of your life?
Absolutely, Thomas. I think that's one of the more important things that's happened is the tractor. There was one year that one of the times I dropped out of college. I think it took 3 times before it stuck. Uh, but one of the times I drove a tractor for my dad for just about a year, almost a year, not quite. And we hardly missed a day. I mean, there were many weeks where we worked 7 days a week. Most of the time it was 6 days a week. And with the weather, the way the weather worked out, we were able to move to other farms right before the bad weather hit that farm, and then, so we was just able to keep working. And that set up some kind of life rhythm in me. I think that has stuck with me as we use measuring tape or rulers or tape measures um, um, to measure by the inch or measure by the foot, um, or millimeters or meters or whatever you got these days. But uh, that when you start with a measuring device that's the longest tape measure you can imagine, which would be, like an infinitely long tape measure. That means you got something to measure anything with.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the tape measure. I can measure anything with this thing. Yeah. Um, it may be wishful thinking, but it introduced to me the idea of different. Uh, I always try to call them scales of measurement, and that is the idea that everything you measure is, first of all, it is its own measure. And all the measuring you can do with it, whether you're measuring with a light meter to measure how much light is there before you take a picture of it, or if you're measuring with the rulers to see how big it is, or how what kind of how far it is from here to over there. Those measurements that we normally use are real good for our living in the relative world, but for in the whole wide cosmos, you can't depend on the Andromeda galaxy to measure everything on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yet those are inklings of ideas about the scale of the universe, and we can sum up the universe with just one word. There are two words: the universe. So that's a funny measurement right there. And so words and concepts come up that are everything we say is a measurement. Every conversation is measurement against measurement. But how many conversations have you had where one of the first words in almost every sentence is "yeah, but," or "yeah, that may be so, but however, listen to this." Yeah, da, da, da. And it's just bouncing. The cosmic ping pong ball game that's going on all the time. And language is very susceptible to that, the measurement of a ping pong ball game or a tennis game. First you hit the ball, now it's in my court. Oh my God, now let me hit the ball, and now it's in your court. That there's a lot of phrases in language that are exactly that: measurement and measurement of the reference points, the benchmarks. My court, your court. Uh-oh. Hey, you hit that one too hard, too fast. Uh-oh, you're out of bounds. No. Yeah. And then we've got, sports and Wall Street and religions and high philosophies, low philosophies, beer joint, and other things built out of those ways, different ways of measuring things. A beer joint measures by how much beer they moved in one night, and how few windows got broken. I mean, there's so it's like all of our activity on Earth is measuring and trying to maybe make estimates based on those measurements about whether it's safe to go out or should we cower away in our room and watch television, until we can't measure television anymore. So that's life is just this phenomenally, and that's a perfect word for it. Life is phenomena, but it's also how we measure phenomena, and how we value some phenomena, and are disgusted or hate other phenomena. And it runs from the subatomic to supergalactic kind of things, but it's mostly centered around human perceptions. So songwriting is messes with us on the level of human interactions and conceptual world. And I think poetry has this wonderful ability to make jumps from one measurement to the next, and kind of bring you back again, because it kind of puts two things together that might not normally be thought of together. And it's a wonderful experience to be moved by the movement of poetry. which moves your mind around a little into areas you might not have wanted it to go, or might not have expected it to go. But you find it pleasurable because the dang steel player played so well, or the fiddle player
Right.
was good. I didn't understand the word they said, but man, it sure was good. So you never know what people are learning and what they need to learn, and most of us don't know that our for ourselves either. We don't know what we're learning, and we don't know until later. Oh, I did something from that. Yeah. So it's and one thing about it, it sure is good that it's fun.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be totally miserable all the time because lots of stuff is difficult, and but that can be fun. Lots of stuff is challenging, and that can be the most fun. And there's sad things that too is challenging and fun. And then comes the idea of not fun. But when you realize that even not fun can be fun, then you might be making some progress. But you gotta live with caution and empathy for everybody else. That's where it all leads to. I think be careful, but don't hurt anybody, and be kind to everyone and everything, if possible. And otherwise, just kind of back away from certain things quietly. Last night I stepped outside our door here in Terlingua, and there's a black-tailed rattler rattling at me. And fortunately, it wasn't quite dark yet, so I stepped out and went to get a bucket to put him in, and I came back and he was gone. So I don't know where he went.
Yeah.
Watch it. The moral of all of that I said here was watch your step.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was going to say is those dirt roads may be RV friendly now, but yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean they're, you know, snake rattle free. So it's out there in Terlingua. Um,
Uh,
speaking of metrics and measuring things, one of the things that I've been like the first time I heard about this, I was just kind of like kind of blown away by what the project and that's something that you did back in I guess it was around 90, the No Two Alike.
oh yeah,
Like I guess like what is that 140 songs, um,
yeah.
played
It's
over I guess like 14 cassettes.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
what spurred you on to go that route and to even try that where is to I guess maybe fill in listeners this live record that you did where you played basically every song in your catalog up to that point.
Well, it was a bunch of them. It wasn't. Thank goodness it wasn't all the songs in my catalog because there's the first couple of hundred of them are not tolerable these days. There may be four or five of them out of that first couple of hundred, but boy, I can. Just the other day, I totally embarrassed myself by going back and looking at it through all those songs, and I said, "Man, these are awful. These things are pathetic," But somewhere along, 200 to 300, I started, hitting finally started hitting the ball. After 200 strikeouts, sometimes you got to hit the ball. It's and it's just a matter of maybe it's just patience or uh, uh, self toleration that got me to the point where I actually could make some good songs, pretty good ones anyhow. And I gradually got more selective about what I was allowing to get into a song, and I found ways and paths of moving through experiences and describing them better. I don't know. It's I still don't think anybody actually knows how they write a song as much as they can describe how they do it. That ain't how. It's really it's something else happens, that we cannot know. And that's part of that. That's part of that. You know, the limitations between, you know, subatomic and, you know, uh, galactic, or beyond beyond just a few galaxies. Uh, that there's this range of possibilities that we live our lives within, and as far as measurement, I've talked a lot about measurement, but the key to the best kind of measurement is measurelessness. Stop even trying to measure. I mean, they've got a lot of things we do automatically, which keeps us alive. You know, stay on the right side of the road. That's a measurement. You know, watch out, speed limit. Sure, that's a measurement. But really, when those things can become automatic, and with a certain amount of caution, certain amount of taking care to avoid, collisions and interruptions like that, then you've got the place where you can be, that is where you don't have to measure things. You can say, hey, do I love this experience, or do I not like it? It's well, what if it's neither of those? What if it's, I am just experiencing this experience? That opens up a lot more potentials around that experience than struggling with it, like we talked about earlier, fighting it, or trying to praise it too much, and it becomes it once you start defining something too much to yourself, you have excluded other possibilities from that definition. You start cherishing the definition more than you cherish the actual experience, which was opening you to many, many more experiences. And instead you cut yourself off. And I think that's what humans tend to do almost all the time. We want things to be in the right place when we come back to look for them, or familiarity helps us a little bit with our false measuring. This is a funny conversation. It turns, I'm talking about music with all of this, and songwriting with all of this, but I'm using these terms of measure. How do you measure something you're about to do? Well, you're projecting possibilities and potentials, and you're hoping for something. So there's this imagery that's forming as you confront something that you're going to be involved in, but you don't know if it's going to be. You cannot delineate exactly how it's going to be. I think one of the best things about it is, I don't know if you ever bought a new car or a new guitar, brand new guitar, shelled out all the money for it, and you have, right after you bought it, you walk out being very, very happy. Oh man, I got my new guitar, and that's pretty happy. That might last, but all of a sudden you go, dang, that cost a lot of money. Oh, I may have made a huge mistake. And it's, how can you have such a positive response to it, and then all of a sudden this negative guilt? Oh my gosh, I should have bought food for the family instead of buying that guitar. And of course, another half mile and you go, oh well, I can get some gigs and make more money for food. So we keep changing our conclusions to fit new delusions.
I want to break one more time to talk about our pals over at Desert Door and offer up a quick Thomas Mooney's cocktail minute. As I've said probably 100 times by now, by no means am I a seasoned mixologist or bartender, but these have been some of my Desert Door go-tos. For starters, let's just go with the tried and true ranch water. Pop the top off the Topo Chico, take a good swig, now pour in some Desert Door, and top it off by throwing in a few lime wedges. never fails. This one, it's so simple it probably doesn't even count, but again, pretty foolproof. Do the exact same thing, but get you a Mexican Coca-Cola. I guess you can go with a regular one, but you're really cutting yourself short if you don't opt for the Mexican import variety. All right, here's the change-up you've been waiting for. Desert Door Sangria. This one is prime for when you have company coming over and you aren't wanting to just be over there making 6 different drinks at a time. What you'll need is some Desert Door, obviously, a bottle of red wine, honey, boiling water, apple cider vinegar, some cinnamon sticks, a couple of apples, and some thyme sprigs. I know, that may sound intimidating, but trust me, it's worth the prep, and honestly, it's pretty easy. For starters, get you a punch bowl, add that honey, those cinnamon sticks, and the boiling water together. Now, you're going to want to stir that all up and let it cool down for about an hour or so. Remember, patience is a virtue. Once that's done, add some Desert Door and stir vigorously. Now add the wine, the cider, and the vinegar, and continue stirring until it's equally mixed. Now slice those apples up and toss them in. Put in those thyme sprigs as well. Now you can pour that over some ice and you have a mighty fine sangria. Chef's kiss. Anyway, those have been some of my favorite go-tos as of late. And remember, Desert Door is as versatile as vodka and more refined, smooth, complex, and intriguing than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whether you decide to keep it simple or want to experiment, Desert Door is that perfect Texas spirit. There's plenty more recipes over at desertdoor.com as well. Check out the show notes for a link. All right, let's get back to the episode. What I was going to relate it to is something when it relates to y'all's song catalog, as far as like you talking about defining, once you start defining something, then like you lose the ability to like take into account other possibilities. Something that y'all have done, and I mentioned this to both Jimmy and Joe, is y'all have like, you know, cut each other's songs over the years, and there's different versions of, you know, multiple songs, and it may be a live version here, or it may be cut by Jimmy over here, and it may be one of your songs. So there's this original version here, and then there's the Flatlanders version here, and then there's this electric version that Joe does, and so on and so forth. And it feels like that's like a very living and breathing catalog, song catalog, where sometimes obviously folks will maybe get too fixated on this being the definitive style or the definitive version of the song. And that's something that maybe that I feel maybe relates to what you're talking about there, as far as like you guys really never putting any of these songs in a box.
Yeah, you know, and that's with that in mind, I've got to get busy and write, you know, do 2 or 3 albums of Jimmy's and Joe's songs, because I haven't done that, and they've recorded a lot of mine, and there's lots of their songs I want to record too, because I love singing them, and I don't get to sing them most of the time because they're singing them, and I've been pretty busy writing other songs, so but that's something I really must do. That's going to be a project very soon, and but to answer your question more directly, that it's like, for a personal example, you know, my song Bluebird, If You Were a Bluebird, I feel like I've really done that one right about 5 or 10 times in my life. I've sung it hundreds, probably thousands of times, and it's always pretty good, you know, but it's like something's missing. But boy, the times when I've started it, I can tell, oh, this is it. This is the way this is the way to do it. And I don't know whether it's a little rhythmic change or just a beat or phrasing or something I do, but you know, and yet every time I hear somebody else sing it, I say, man, that's perfect. They're doing it. Even if they change up words or mess it up, it's wow. What a great take on that. So there's some of that involved in doing songs over and over again, and because you can't really do them over again, like Jimmy says, it's like you can't do anything again. It's because it's a totally new experience, a totally new thing when you do something. So there's a kind of a joy and newness in everything. If you get bored by uh, doing your song too many times, then it's your fault. It's not the song's fault, and it's not the number of times you've done it. It's you're going to sleep or something. There's
Hmm.
one time the Flatlanders back in Lubbock. This is back 71, maybe late 70 or early 71. We uh, we all walked down to the Pizza Palace, Tower of Pizza on not on Broadway, but the next main street, I guess. And uh, we were in there. This was like like 10:30 at night, maybe 11, and they were kind of wanted to close, but they stayed open, for us, and we ordered a pizza or something, and so this friend of ours, Ed Snow, who was a kind of a poet, beat poet kind of, and a jazz piano player, and uh, really brilliant guy. He walks in and Steve Weston, our saw player, turned around and said, "Hey Ed, how's it going? How you doing?" And Ed said, "Oh, I'm not so good. I'm really bored, Steve." And Steve said, "Well, hey, come on over and sit with us, and we'll all get bored together." And so he came over and sat down, and so we said, "Okay, let's see how bored we can get." Well, for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, we laughed more than we've ever laughed in our lives. I think we all got so tickled trying to be bored, and we just couldn't do it. We could not get bored, which is absolute proof that it has something to do with the way your attention is fixed in your head. And if you open it up, man, everything becomes amazing, or at least funny.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of those early days like that in Lubbock, um, I think like for someone like me who's covered, I guess, music mainly folks who are around my age, contemporary artists who are still living in Lubbock and writing about and playing here. I think like whenever you naturally look back to what y'all were doing, what Terry Allen was doing, the Maines brothers, you kind of always just think it all happened in like this one, like it was just always happening. Everyone was releasing records and and playing shows every day of the week, kind of thing. But clearly, it's not the case because I mean that doesn't
Yeah.
happen now. And with
Yeah.
Lubbock even being smaller back then, what was it like? I guess in those moments where it was not to say it was boring again, but like what were those moments when it was like the polar opposite as far as like when you kind of maybe felt that like the Lubbock music scene was, you know, not necessarily the center of the world, but this, something that was special was happening there because there was clearly all these incredible artists who were uh, playing or coming back home or whatever the case is.
Well, I my take on it, sort of as you're asking. I don't know if this is it, but it's um, we were there at a very peculiar time. Like from well, after we were all got out of high school. Joe was a couple of years behind us in high school. Me and Jimmy were in the same graduating class. But as we worked somewhat into college, and or took off on different roads at different times, it was also Vietnam days started happening, and there was this explosion around the world really of a kind of a consciousness of, wait a minute, man, why why are why are our people going over there and killing people?
Mm-hmm.
It and a lot of us simply took exception to that, and it broke our hearts, about what our country was doing over there. And others took it as the thing to do, and we had friends that, and that went both, either direction, and with that, and some came back and some didn't come back, but and the ones that came back, there was something that a deep pain felt in their heart for what they did, and yet we weren't blaming them, but they felt blamed. But and it's man, that was a heavy time, extremely heavy time, and it may be that heavy times are when freedom itself kind of feels constrained and feels like it's got to bust through these restraints. I liken freedom somewhat to water, is that, water seeks its own level, as they say, and it'll find its way through a dam. It'll seep through a dam. It'll if it has to, it'll evaporate and go over the dam. Uh, but but that's what freedom does. Freedom, truth will find a way. The universe is made out of nothing but truth, and and I mean nothing but truth, and then it divides into freedom or constriction or restriction. And restriction is necessary to keep us on the planet. For example, law of gravity pisses me off. The long arm of the law of gravity. What are you going to do about it? Well, you can jump up and down and go jump out of an airplane, and you'll figure out what the law of gravity is about. But it's that, the same thing applies to our hearts. We the heart will find a way, uh, and when you're constrained, you will find a way. Sometimes it's very damaging. The way that you find becomes self-destructive, but it's trying to find a way. That's why I've over the years I've come to listen to every sound humans make as just this incredible call for the spirit. It's the worst, most foul, horrible sounding utterances that people make. They're they're a cry for help. They're a cry for wanting to join the human race. To get out of their entrapment. And that's what it all comes down to. That's where we are. We're trapped on the planet as human beings, and you know uh, we've got to elevate our heart and our make our arms big enough to wrap around the whole planet. Because if you leave somebody out, you're that ain't good. If you leave somebody out, that's some of your responsibility. We're all that's part of the restriction to freedom. You can be, freedom can make you explode. Freedom can make you, go so crazy that you can't come back. Restriction has to do with all those words that are restrictive, like speed limits, limits and laws and things that are necessary to keep everybody from destroying each other, for example. So uh, laws ideally would be built around keeping people from hurting other people, because generally people try not to hurt themselves, but they do that too. And we're stuck with some kind of uh, innate bill of parasites within our brains and hearts that, we can destroy ourselves if we want to. I'm a free person. Yeah, well, okay, adios. Uh, but when you start extending that to other people, uh, yeah, no, you can't do that. Don't do that. That's suddenly there's a new kind of law. No, don't destroy other people. And yet we're stuck in a planet where groups of people are doing just that to other people. So it's an ugly part of life. And yet, if you think of it on a universal level, hey, universe is just eating itself up and spitting itself out all the time. Black holes gobble up, I think, a neutron star just the other day. Why, just the other day, which probably means, a few 100 million years ago.
Right.
But uh, it's, all the things we talk about, it really all comes down to, hey, life is awesome. And it has a very difficult side. And the best we can do is wake up to all of that and help other people to wake up to that, and give to our fellow humans. Uh, Give that, that it's love and compassion. Um, you don't hear people talking so much about love and compassion. You hear them talking about love with a little L. Baby, I love you. Why are
Yeah.
you Why'd you run off with my car? Yeah, or but compassion is a whole nother thing that we're still kind of fledglings about. Uh, but
Y-
but that's the great liberator of human beings is compassion.
Yeah.
You know,
The that combination of compassion and empathy, um,
yeah, yeah,
because I mean, as you were saying right there, everyone kind of has that inner bill of rights. Those things where you just know to not do to yourself. That freedom. Yeah, I think like that's for I don't know if it's difficult for a lot of people, but to clearly like I guess it relates to maybe songwriters are easier to or artists in general are easier to tap into that empathetic state because clearly you can tell other folks stories and try and understand what they're going through, trying to understand what their walk of life is.
yeah. Really, it's just opening up, open the heart, open the mind, and miracles happen. They really do. With a closed mind and a closed heart, you're going to be and setting certain kinds of limits that are based on any kind of bias and prejudice instead of based on another person's safety. Those limits uh, will just tie you in knots because suddenly, you set limits, and you exclude all other possibilities from those on the other side of those limits from you, and that's where hurt begins when you uh, ball up into the self a little too much, and you don't open up heart and mind to compassion and the camaraderie of everybody kind of being in the same boat on this planet. I just love saying, "Hey, man, we're all just bozos on this bus, right?" And and we are. We make stupid mistakes, and we're quick to forgive ourselves, but not very quick to forgive others. So it's we kind of got a lot of things backwards. But that can be worked on, and that's what we got to work on. We got to keep preaching it and living it and spreading the word. So
Yeah,
so yeah, love and compassion to everyone. Blessings on you.
I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, I think like that's, you said like people can work on themselves too. I think that's a real key to a lot of life right there, has being able to allow yourself to grow and evolve. And I mean, that's the, I don't know if that's necessarily the key of life, but I feel like that has to be an aspect of it. But you know,
Well, I think that to grow and evolve is part of what I talked about a little while ago about freedom, finding a way.
mm-hmm.
Years ago, I was at Texas Tech, and somebody gave a lecture in the Student Union building upstairs uh, on something about life and music. That was the title of it. Life and architecture and music or something like that. And so me and two or three of my friends went to hear that. It was I think it was a packed house. And but there's one thing I came away from that lecture that just has continued to blow my mind in a beautiful way uh, ever since. And that was, he said, life is uh, spirit in search of substance, and substance in search of spirit. And that is such a beautiful thing, man. You move toward the spirit and it is moving towards you, and vice versa. It's it's all the high lofty ideas we have about how good people can be to themselves and to each other uh, are kind of nebulous, and that's at one extreme, and at the other extreme there's this, oh, woe is me, I'm miserable, I'm feeling sorry for myself, blah blah blah, everybody's against me. Yeah, that's substance. That's getting all caught up in all the phenomena and all the blaming everybody else for everything, that you don't like. But so the work is taking those first few steps, aiming back towards the spirit, and it's an inner thing. It's not like the spirit is out there somewhere. It's all inside you, and you've got to. So you're actually, the journey is to a greater self, a higher self. That self that includes all selves, because we're all equal in that whole selfdom thing. and and once you realize that, then wow, man, you can have a conversation with anybody anytime, and it can be wonderful because you empathize them and say, man, if they're feeling as low as I am today, maybe I better cheer them up. Maybe I can cheer them up, and it's things like that. We're here to help each other along, man. And it's a lot of work, but yeah, the beautiful part of it is that it begins and is fulfilled with just one effort at that. Being nice to one person, suddenly you've got it. You've got the whole thing figured out right there. Then be nice to another. Oh my gosh. So all people can be on the receiving end of my best wishes. No exceptions. That's become another of my favorite phrases these days, is no exceptions. Be good, go take care of everybody on the planet. No exceptions. I think that makes more sense than anything I've ever said.
I think so too. Absolutely. It's yeah, and in my opinion, it's better than the alternative of
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But
So I'm just hoping that my songs can help lift spirits here and there. You can't always be singing the right song for a person at at any particular time, but you never know what's gonna come back to you years later. Somebody was deeply affected by some song you sang. It's I've had that happen on several occasions, and I figure it must be true on other occasions too. But it's a big planet that's capable of love, and we're messing around, groveling in the sewer a lot of the time. So let's. My advice to everyone is, get up, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, take a shower, and go out into the world and be good to folks. And it is not that hard to do. You can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great note to end it on. It's been a pleasure talking with you today, Butch.
Thomas, it's been fun, man. I hope I didn't get too sidetracked or derailed on anything, but if it is,
this has been great.
It'll all come back together.
All right, that is it for this one. Again, go check out Treasure of Love by the Flatlanders, out today, July the 9th. Go check out the other episodes with Jimmy and Joe if you haven't just yet. Go visit our presenting partners, Desert Door and the Blue Light Live. Stop on over at the merch store. Subscribe to New Slang. And yeah, I'll see y'all next week for more episodes.